He was just a struggling single dad working 2 jobs to keep the lights on in his cramped apartment. She was the elegant woman whose family he pulled from a blazing mansion with a secret that would make him question everything he thought he knew about wealth, identity, and second chances. And the only reason their worlds collided was a 3-alarm house fire on the wealthiest street in town, and 3 strangers he risked everything to save. What happened next will challenge everything you believe about destiny, hidden fortunes, and how one act of courage can unlock doors you never knew existed. The woman he saved wasn't just grateful. She was someone who had been searching for him her entire life. Someone whose true identity would reveal a connection so shocking, so life-changing, that it would transform a broke single father into something he never dared dream possible. This is the story of how saving strangers can sometimes save yourself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock screamed at 4:47 a.m., but Jason Thompson was already awake. He'd been staring at the water stain on his ceiling for the past 20 minutes, calculating how many more shifts he'd need to cover before he could afford to fix it. The mathematics of survival had become his specialty over the past 3 years. Every dollar stretched, every expense weighed against necessity, every decision filtered through the lens of what his 8-year-old son needed most. Jason rolled out of the sagging mattress that served as his bed in the studio apartment above. Martinez's auto repair shop. The space wasn't much, 400 square feet of cramped living that smelled perpetually of motor oil and the neighbors' cooking, but it was home. More importantly, it was all he could afford on his combined income from his day job as a mechanic and his weekend shifts driving for a rideshare company. In the corner of the main room, separated by a makeshift curtain he'd hung from the ceiling, his son Tommy slept peacefully on a twin bed they'd bought secondhand from a garage sale. The boy's face was peaceful in sleep, unaware of the financial tightrope his father walked daily to keep their small world intact. Jason had made sure of that. Whatever struggles he faced, whatever sacrifices he made, Tommy would never feel the weight of their circumstances. The morning routine was precise, born of necessity and repetition. Jason moved quietly through the apartment, preparing instant coffee in a chipped mug that had once belonged to his ex-wife, Sarah. She'd left them 18 months ago, claiming she couldn't handle the limitations of their life together. The divorce papers had arrived with a note explaining she'd found someone who could provide the lifestyle she deserved. Jason had never contested it. What was the point? He couldn't compete with wealth he'd never possess. By 5:30 a.m., he was downstairs in the shop, already elbow-deep in the engine of a 1998 Honda Civic that wheezed like an old man climbing stairs. The car belonged to Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who brought him homemade cookies every time she needed repairs. She never had much money either, so Jason often found himself charging her half of what the work was actually worth. It wasn't good business, but it was the right thing to do. "You're here early again," called Miguel Martinez, the shop owner, as he arrived with his usual cup of gas station coffee. Miguel was in his 60s, with hands permanently stained by decades of honest work and a heart bigger than his profit margins. He'd given Jason this job when no one else would hire a single father with limited experience and a schedule complicated by parenting responsibilities. "Couldn't sleep," Jason replied, not looking up from the engine. "Figured I might as well get a head start on Mrs. Patterson's car. She needs it back by noon for her doctor's appointment." Miguel nodded approvingly. This was why he'd kept Jason on, despite the younger man's unconventional living situation. Jason Thompson might not have had formal training or years of experience, but he had something more valuable: integrity. In 3 years, Miguel had never once questioned Jason's work ethic, his honesty, or his dedication to doing right by their customers. The morning progressed with its usual rhythm. Jason worked on 3 different vehicles, each repair carefully, executed despite the pressure to work faster. Speed meant more money, but quality meant customers who returned and trusted him with their most essential possession, their transportation. For people in their neighborhood, a broken car wasn't an inconvenience. It was a catastrophe that could cost jobs, miss medical appointments, or prevent parents from reaching their families. Around 10 a.m., Tommy appeared at the top of the stairs that led to their apartment, still in his pajamas and rubbing sleep from his eyes. School was out for Teacher Development Day, which meant Jason had arranged for Mrs. Chen from next door to watch the boy while he worked. It wasn't ideal. Jason would have preferred to spend the day with his son, but single parenthood meant making difficult choices daily. "Morning, kiddo," Jason called, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen better days. "Mrs. Chen will be here in a few minutes. Did you brush your teeth?" Tommy nodded solemnly. At 8 years old, he developed a maturity that sometimes worried Jason. The boy rarely complained about their cramped living situation, never asked for expensive toys his friends had, and seemed to understand intuitively that his father was doing everything possible to provide for them. It was a burden no 8-year-old should carry, but Jason wasn't sure how to shield him from it without lying about their reality. "Dad," Tommy said quietly, "Jimmy's mom is taking him to the new arcade this weekend. He asked if I could come, but I told him we probably couldn't afford it." Jason's heart clenched. The casual way his son had accepted their financial limitations was both heartbreaking and admirable. Other parents complained about their teens demanding expensive items, but Jason faced the opposite problem. A boy who had learned not to want things because wanting led to disappointment. "Hey," Jason said, setting down his tools and giving Tommy his full attention. "What did I tell you about assuming what we can and can't do? Let me worry about the money stuff, okay? You just worry about being 8 years old." Tommy's face brightened slightly. "So I can go?" Jason did quick mental math. The arcade would cost about $20, money he'd earmarked for groceries. But groceries could wait a day or two. His son's childhood couldn't. "Yeah, you can go. We'll figure it out." The smile that spread across Tommy's face was worth every calculation, every sacrifice, every sleepless night spent worrying about bills. This was why Jason worked 2 jobs, why he lived in 400 square feet above an auto shop, why he drove a 15-year-old pickup truck with a temperamental transmission. Not for himself, but for moments like these, moments when he could still be the father who made his son's small dreams come true. As Mrs. Chen arrived to collect Tommy for the day, Jason returned to his work with renewed purpose. He had a car to finish, 3 more vehicles waiting for attention, and a ride-share shift scheduled for the evening. Somewhere in the margins of those responsibilities, he'd find the money for Tommy's arcade visit. He had no way of knowing that. By the end of the day, money would be the least of his concerns. By nightfall, a single act of courage would set in motion a chain of events that would transform everything he thought he knew about his life, his past, and his future. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, the heat in the auto shop had become unbearable. The ancient air conditioning unit wheezed and rattled, but provided little relief from the sweltering August temperature that had settled over Millbrook like a heavy blanket. Jason's work shirt clung to his back as he finished installing new brake pads on a delivery truck that had seen better decades. The radio in the corner played classic rock at low volume, while Miguel handled the front desk, negotiating payment plans with customers who, like most of their clientele, lived paycheck to paycheck. Martinez Auto Repair wasn't located in the wealthy part of town. It sat squarely in the working-class neighborhood where people drove their cars until they literally couldn't anymore, then scraped together money for repairs that would keep them running just a little longer. Jason understood this clientele because he was this clientele. Every customer who walked through their doors faced the same impossible mathematics he navigated daily. How to keep a vehicle running when you can't afford to replace it, how to balance essential repairs against rent and groceries, how to maintain dignity when explaining why you need to pay in installments. "Thompson," Miguel called from the office. "You've got that Prius coming in at 4, and Mrs. Rodriguez wants to know if you can look at her son's motorcycle this weekend. She's offering to pay in empanadas again." Jason grinned despite the heat. Mrs. Rodriguez made the best empanadas in a 6-block radius, and her son's motorcycle was more personality than mechanics at this point. "Tell her yes, but only if she includes those little cheese ones Tommy likes." This was the rhythm of Jason's world: small negotiations, modest victories, and relationships built on mutual understanding of what it meant to make do with less. He'd grown up in neighborhoods like this, had learned to fix things instead of replacing them, had developed the ability to find value in what others might discard. His own truck, parked behind the shop, was a testament to this philosophy. The 2009 Ford F-150 had 180,000 miles on it and a paint job that had faded from blue to something resembling dusty sky. The transmission slipped occasionally, the air conditioning worked only when it felt like it, and the radio got exactly 2 stations clearly. But Jason had rebuilt the engine himself, replaced the alternator twice, and knew every sound it made well enough to diagnose problems before they became catastrophes. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. At 4:15, Jason was washing his hands in the small sink behind the shop when his phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. "Mrs. Chen is teaching me to make dumplings. Can we have them for dinner?" The message was accompanied by a photo of his son's flour-covered hands and a grin that could power the entire neighborhood. Jason smiled, typing back, "Save some for me, kiddo. Home by 7. This was the part of single parenthood that surprised him most, not the exhaustion or the financial pressure, but the unexpected moments of pure joy. Tommy's enthusiasm for new experiences, his resilience in the face of their circumstances, his ability to find wonder in simple things like homemade dumplings with an elderly neighbor. Sometimes Jason wondered if his son was teaching him more about contentment than he was teaching Tommy about responsibility. The Prius owner arrived right on schedule, a college student named David who worked part-time at the campus bookstore and drove for a food delivery service on weekends. The hybrid's battery was dying, a repair that would cost more than the car was worth, but David needed it to work to afford staying in school. "I can't get a loan for a new car," David explained, anxiety evident in his voice. "And if I can't work, I can't afford tuition. My parents keep saying I should just drop out and get a real job, but this is my last semester." Jason examined the hybrid battery, running calculations in his head. There was a workaround, not a permanent fix, but something that would buy David 6 months, maybe 8 if he was careful. It wasn't the kind of repair he'd recommend to most customers, but David wasn't most customers. He was a young man trying to better his circumstances, just like Jason had been years ago. "I can rig something temporary," Jason said finally. "It won't last forever, but it'll get you through graduation. I'll charge you for parts and a couple hours of labor, nothing more." The relief on David's face reminded Jason why he'd chosen this work, why he'd accepted Miguel's offer, even when friends had suggested he could make more money elsewhere. Fixing cars wasn't just about mechanical problems. It was about keeping people's lives moving forward when they couldn't afford to stop. As the afternoon wore on, Jason found himself thinking about the choices that had led him here. He'd never planned to be a single father living above an auto shop, never imagined that his most significant decision each day would be whether to buy name brand cereal or generic. But he'd also never planned on the satisfaction he felt when Mrs. Patterson's Honda started smoothly, or the pride he took in Tommy's resilience, or the sense of community he'd found in this neighborhood of people who understood struggle. His ex-wife Sarah had left because she wanted more money, more status, more certainty about the future. Jason couldn't blame her for wanting those things, but he'd discovered something she'd never understood. Contentment didn't require abundance. It required purpose, connection, and the daily choice to find meaning in whatever circumstances you faced. At 6 p.m., Miguel locked up the front office while Jason finished cleaning his tools. The older man paused at the back door, studying Jason with the expression he wore when he had something important to say. "You know," Miguel said slowly, "my cousin owns a shop in the suburbs, makes twice what we do here, works on luxury cars. He's always looking for good mechanics." Jason continued organizing his toolbox, understanding the unspoken offer. Miguel was giving him an out, a chance to earn more money in a better location. It was generous, practical, and exactly the kind of opportunity he should jump at for Tommy's sake. "Thanks," Jason said quietly. "But I think we're good here." Miguel nodded, unsurprised. Those customers out there, they need someone who understands, someone who won't take advantage just because they're desperate. "Someone like you taught me to be. Someone you already were," Miguel corrected. "I just gave you a place to show." As Miguel left, Jason climbed the stairs to their apartment, where the smell of dumplings and the sound of Tommy's laughter with Mrs. Chen greeted him. This was his ordinary world, small, limited, but filled with purpose and connection. He had no way of knowing that in less than 2 hours, this world would crack open in ways that would challenge everything he thought he knew about his place in it. The call came at 8:47 p.m., just as Jason was helping Tommy with his math homework. At their small kitchen table, the rideshare app on his phone chimed with a pickup request from Grandview Heights, the wealthy neighborhood on the other side of town, where houses sat behind iron gates and driveways curved past manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than Jason made in a month. "I have to work, buddy," Jason said, closing Tommy's workbook and ruffling his hair. "Mrs. Chen said she'd check on you before bed, okay?" Tommy nodded solemnly. At 8 years old, he was accustomed to his father's unpredictable schedule, understanding that nighttime rides meant extra money for things like arcade visits and name-brand cereal. "Be safe, Dad." The phrase had become their ritual, Tommy's way of acknowledging the risks that came with driving strangers around a city that could turn dangerous after dark. Jason kissed the top of his son's head, grabbed his keys, and headed downstairs to his aging pickup truck. The drive to Grandview Heights took 25 minutes through surface streets Jason knew like the lines on his palm. As the neighborhoods gradually shifted from working class to middle class to affluent, the changes were subtle but unmistakable. Sidewalks became wider and cleaner, streetlights grew more decorative, houses expanded from modest single stories to sprawling 2-story colonials with 3-car garages. The pickup request had come from 1247 Willowbrook Lane, an address that led Jason through increasingly elaborate neighborhoods until he found himself on a street lined with mansions that looked like they belonged in magazines rather than reality. Each house sat on at least 2 acres, separated by tall hedges and ornate fencing that spoke of privacy, security, and wealth beyond anything Jason had ever experienced. Number 1247 was a 3-story Georgian mansion with white columns, bay windows, and a circular driveway that could have housed a dozen cars. Warm light spilled from multiple windows, and Jason could see the shadows of people moving inside. His passenger was probably some wealthy executive who needed a ride to the airport or a business dinner, the kind of fare that paid well and tipped better. Jason pulled up to the front entrance and checked his phone for passenger details. The request had come from someone named Naomi, with a 5-star rating and a note that simply read, Thank you in advance for your patience." He was reaching for his phone to text that he'd arrived when he smelled it. Smoke. Not the pleasant aroma of a fireplace, but something sharper, more acrid. Something wrong. Jason stepped out of his truck and looked around, trying to locate the source. The smell was definitely stronger outside, carried on the evening breeze from somewhere nearby. He walked a few steps up the circular driveway, following the scent when he saw it, orange light flickering behind the windows of the mansion's east wing. For a moment, Jason stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The warm lights he'd noticed from the street weren't just interior lighting, they were flames, growing brighter and more intense with each passing second. Smoke was beginning to seep from under the eaves, and he could hear something that made his blood run cold, screaming from inside the house. Without conscious thought, Jason sprinted toward the front door. His mechanic's training had taught him to assess situations quickly, to identify problems and solutions in high-pressure moments. But nothing had prepared him for this. He could hear multiple voices now, adults shouting, what sounded like younger, voices crying, the crackle and roar of fire consuming everything in its path. The front door was unlocked. Jason burst through into a foyer that looked like something from a museum. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, oil paintings in gold frames. But the beauty was marred by smoke that was growing thicker by the minute. The acrid smell was overwhelming now, burning his eyes and throat. "Hello?" he shouted. "Is anyone in here? I'm here to help." "We're upstairs," came a woman's voice, strained with panic. "We can't get down. The stairs are blocked." Jason looked toward the grand staircase that curved elegantly to the second floor. Flames were already licking at the bottom steps, and smoke was billowing down from above. The fire was moving faster than seemed possible, consuming the mansion's expensive furnishings like they were made of paper and kindling. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911 as he moved deeper into the house, looking for another way upstairs. "Doctor, what's your emergency?" "House fire at 1247 Willowbrook Lane in Grandview Heights. Multiple people trapped on the second floor. I'm inside trying to help them." "Sir, you need to evacuate immediately. Fire department is en route." "There's no time," Jason said, ending the call and shoving the phone back in his pocket. Years of working in tight spaces, crawling under cars and navigating cramped engine compartments had given Jason an intuitive understanding of how buildings were constructed. Most houses this size had service stairs, back staircases originally designed for servants, but now used as secondary access points. If he could find the kitchen, he might find another way up. The smoke was getting thicker, making it harder to see and breathe. Jason pulled his work shirt up over his nose and mouth, using it as a makeshift filter as he navigated through rooms that probably cost more to furnish than he'd earned in his entire life. Persian rugs, antique furniture, artwork that belonged in galleries, all of it now threatened by flames that showed no respect for monetary value. He found the kitchen, a massive space with professional-grade appliances and granite countertops, and spotted what he was looking for: a narrow staircase tucked behind a pantry door. Service stairs, just as he'd hoped. The stairwell was filling with smoke, but it wasn't yet consumed by flames. Jason took the steps 2 at a time, his heart pounding from exertion and adrenaline. At the top, he emerged into a hallway where the smoke was so thick he could barely see 5 feet in front of him. "Where are you?" he called out. "Here, in the master bedroom." The woman's voice was closer now, coming from his right. "Please help us. We can't breathe." Jason followed the voice, feeling along the wall until he found an open doorway. Inside, he could make out shapes huddled near a large window, a woman and what appeared to be 2 teenagers, all of them coughing violently from smoke inhalation. The woman looked up as he entered, and even through the smoke and chaos, Jason could see that she was beautiful in the way that money could enhance. Perfectly styled hair, expensive clothing, the kind of effortless elegance that came from a lifetime of privilege. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, she was just a terrified mother trying to protect her family. "Thank God," she gasped. "I called for a ride, but then the fire, we couldn't get out. I'm gonna get you out," Jason said, moving to the window. It was a large bay window that looked out over the back lawn, probably 15 feet above ground level. Not an ideal exit, but better than burning alive. He examined the window's construction, looking for the release mechanism. These old mansions often had windows that were more decorative than functional, but this one appeared to open. Jason forced the latch and pushed the heavy window open, letting in a rush of cool night air that was the most beautiful thing he'd ever breathed. Below, he could see landscaping, hedges and flower beds that would provide some cushioning, though not much. It was going to be a rough landing, but it was survivable. "We're going to have to jump," he told them. "It's not far, and there are bushes below to break the fall." The woman looked terrified, but one of the teenagers, a girl who couldn't have been more than 16, stepped forward. "I'll go first," she said, with a courage that reminded Jason of Tommy's unexpected maturity. In the distance, Jason could hear sirens approaching, but he knew they wouldn't arrive in time. The fire was spreading too quickly, the smoke was getting thicker, and they had maybe minutes before this room became uninhabitable. One by one, he helped them out the window, watching as they landed safely in the landscaping below before turning back to make sure no one else was trapped in the house. The heat was becoming unbearable, and he could hear the fire consuming the floors below them with increasing intensity. Jason landed hard in the hedge below the window, branches scraping against his arms and face as he rolled away from the burning mansion. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but adrenaline kept him moving. He scrambled to his feet and immediately began checking on the family he'd helped escape. The woman and her 2 teenagers, who were now sitting on the manicured lawn, coughing and trying to catch their breath in the cool night air. The sirens were getting closer, their wails echoing through the affluent neighborhood that rarely experienced anything more dramatic than a fender bender or a false alarm. Red and blue lights were already visible through the trees, casting eerie shadows across the sprawling properties of Grandview Heights. "Is everyone okay?" Jason asked, kneeling beside the family. His voice was hoarse from smoke inhalation, and his hands were shaking from the combination of adrenaline and the realization of what had just happened. "Any injuries?" The woman looked up at him, and for the first time, Jason got a clear look at her face. Even in the chaos of the moment, even with soot streaking her cheeks and her expensive clothes torn from their escape, there was something striking about her. She appeared to be in her early 40s, with dark hair that had come loose from what had probably been an elegant updo, and eyes that seemed to hold depths he couldn't quite read. "We're alive because of you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion and smoke damage. "I don't know how to thank you." The 2 teenagers, a girl who looked about 16 and a boy who appeared slightly younger, were sitting close to their mother, their faces pale but alert. The girl had inherited her mother's dark hair and striking features, while the boy had lighter coloring and a more serious expression. Both of them were staring at Jason with a mixture of awe and gratitude that made him uncomfortable. "You don't need to thank me," Jason said, accepting a bottle of water that someone had brought from a neighboring house. "Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," the woman said firmly, "they wouldn't have. Most people would have waited for the fire department. You ran into a burning building to save strangers." The fire department arrived in a cascade of sirens, flashing lights, and controlled chaos. Within minutes, the area was transformed into a command center with fire trucks, ambulances, and police vehicles. Firefighters immediately began attacking the blaze, their hoses sending arcs of water into the flames that were now consuming most of the mansion's upper floors. EMTs approached their small group, checking each person for signs of smoke inhalation and other injuries. Jason tried to wave them off. He felt fine, just tired and a little shaky, but they insisted on checking his vitals and giving him oxygen to help clear his lungs. "You're lucky," one of the paramedics told him as she listened to his chest with a stethoscope. "Another few minutes in there, and you would have been in serious trouble. Smoke inhalation kills more people in house fires than flames do." As the medical checks continued, Jason found himself studying the family he'd rescued. There was something about them that didn't quite fit the typical wealthy family profile he would have expected from this neighborhood. The woman carried herself with confidence and grace, but there was also a wariness in her eyes, as if she was accustomed to being cautious about revealing too much about herself. The teenagers, too, seemed more mature and self-contained than most kids their age. They weren't crying or panicking despite having just escaped a house fire. Instead, they stayed close to their mother and watched the firefighters work with an almost professional level of composure. "I'm Naomi Phillips," the woman said suddenly, extending her hand to Jason. "And these are my son Marcus and daughter Sophia. We owe you our lives." Jason shook her hand, noting that her grip was firm and confident. "Jason Thompson, I'm just glad I was here when you needed help." "You were supposed to give me a ride," Naomi said with a weak smile. "I had called for transportation to the airport. I never imagined." She gestured toward the burning mansion, where firefighters were still battling flames that seemed determined to consume everything in their path. "What happened?" Jason asked. "How did the fire start?" Naomi's expression darkened slightly. "We're not sure. I was in my office on the second floor, working on some paperwork, when I smelled smoke. By the time I realized what was happening and got to the kids, the main staircase was already blocked." She paused, looking back at the mansion. "Everything happened so fast." Jason nodded, understanding how quickly fires could spread, especially in older buildings with lots of wood and fabric. But something in Naomi's tone suggested there might be more to the story than a simple, accidental fire. A fire captain approached their group, a tall man with gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had seen too many disasters. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Rodriguez. I'm going to need to ask you some questions about the fire, but first I want to make sure everyone is medically cleared." "Of course," Naomi replied. "This is Jason Thompson. He's the one who got us out." Captain Rodriguez turned to Jason with evident respect. "Son, what you did tonight took real courage. Most people would have waited for us to arrive." "I couldn't wait," Jason said simply. "They needed help." The captain nodded approvingly. "Can you walk me through what you saw when you arrived? Any details about how the fire was behaving, where it seemed to be concentrated?" Jason described his arrival, the smell of smoke, his decision to enter the house, and the route he'd taken to reach the trapped family. As he spoke, he noticed Naomi listening intently, as if she was hearing details about her own rescue for the first time. "The fire seemed to be moving unusually fast," Jason added. "I've never seen anything like it. It was like the whole house was designed to burn. Captain Rodriguez and Naomi exchanged a look that Jason couldn't quite interpret. There was something unspoken passing between them, some understanding that didn't include him. "We'll need to investigate the cause," the captain said carefully. "Sometimes these old houses have electrical issues, or there might have been accelerants that made the fire spread more quickly." As the evening progressed, Jason found himself drawn into a series of conversations with investigators, insurance, representatives and neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle. Through it all, he remained aware of Naomi and her family, who seemed to be conducting their own quiet conversations with various officials. There was something about the way people spoke to Naomi, with a deference that went beyond sympathy for a fire victim. Police officers approached her with a respect that seemed professional rather than merely compassionate. Insurance representatives spoke to her in hushed tones, as if they were discussing matters more complex than a typical homeowner's claim. Around midnight, as the fire was finally being brought under control, Naomi approached Jason, where he sat on the bumper of an ambulance, still trying to process everything that had happened. "Jason," she said, "I know this has been an overwhelming night for you, but I was wondering if we could talk privately for a few minutes." He looked up at her, noting that despite everything she'd been through, she still carried herself with an almost regal composure. Of course. They walked a short distance away from the crowd of emergency responders and onlookers, stopping near a large oak tree that had probably been growing on this property for decades before the mansion was built. "What you did tonight," Naomi began, "it changed everything for my family. Not just because you saved our lives, but because of who you are, how you acted without hesitation, without asking for anything in return." Jason was about to deflect the praise again when something in her tone stopped him. This wasn't just gratitude. This was something deeper, more significant. "I need to tell you something," Naomi continued. "Something that's going to sound strange, maybe even impossible. But after tonight, after what you've done, I think you deserve to know the truth." She paused, studying his face in the dim light. "Jason, do you know anything about your family history? About your parents?" The question caught him completely off. "Agard. My parents? They died when I was young. I was raised by my grandmother. Why?" Jason stared at Naomi Phillips in the dim light cast by the emergency vehicles, her words echoing in his mind like something from a dream. "You've been looking. For me?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't understand. We've never met before tonight." Naomi glanced back toward the smoldering remains of her mansion, then at the firefighters who were still working to contain the last of the flames. When she looked back at Jason, her eyes held a mixture of emotions he couldn't decipher. Relief, apprehension, and something that looked almost like recognition. "We haven't met," she said carefully, "but I've known about you for most of your life. Jason, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible, but I need you to listen with an open mind." Jason felt a chill run down his spine despite the warm August night. Something about Naomi's tone, the way she seemed to be choosing each word with deliberate precision, told him that whatever she was about to reveal would change everything he thought he knew about himself. "My name isn't just Naomi Phillips," she began, her voice steady but quiet. "It's Naomi Phillips Hartwell. I'm the chief legal counsel and primary trustee for the Hartwell Foundation." The name meant nothing to Jason, but the way she said it suggested it should. "I'm sorry, I don't know what that is," Naomi nodded, as if she'd expected this response. The Hartwell Foundation is one of the largest private charitable organizations in the country. We manage assets worth over $2 billion, funding everything from medical research to educational programs to disaster relief. The foundation was established by my late husband's grandfather in 1952. Jason's mind was struggling to process this information. $2 billion. He was talking to someone who managed more money than he could even conceptualize, someone whose world was so far removed from his daily reality that they might as well have been from different planets. "I still don't understand what this has to do with me," he said. Naomi reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a leather portfolio that had somehow survived their escape from the burning house. From it, she extracted a photograph, old, slightly faded, but carefully preserved. She handed it to Jason. The photograph showed a young couple standing in front of what appeared to be a hospital. The woman was holding a baby, and both adults were smiling at the camera with the kind of joy that came from new parenthood. But it was the man in the photograph that made Jason's breath catch in his throat. He was looking at his own face, or rather, a face so similar to his own that it could have been a photograph of him taken 30 years ago. The same dark hair, the same jawline, the same eyes that Tommy had inherited. The resemblance was unmistakable and deeply unsettling. "That's your father," Naomi said gently. Michael Thompson. And the baby in your mother's arms is you. Jason's hands were shaking as he studied the photograph. I don't understand. My grandmother told me my parents died in a car accident when I was 2. She said there were no other family members, no one else who could take care of me. Your grandmother was protecting you, Naomi replied. She was telling you the truth about the car accident, but not the whole truth about who your parents were or why their deaths were so significant. The night air seemed to grow colder as Jason waited for her to continue. In the distance, he could hear the firefighters shouting instructions to each other, the sound of water hitting smoldering timbers, the crackle of radios coordinating the emergency response. But all of that felt distant and unreal compared to the conversation he was having with this woman who claimed to know secrets about his past. Michael Thompson was my husband's nephew, Naomi continued. He was also the designated heir to the Hartwell family fortune. When he and your mother died, you became the sole surviving member of the next generation. Under the terms of the family trust that made you the rightful heir to everything, Jason felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. That's impossible. I'm a mechanic who lives above an auto shop. I drive for a rideshare company to make ends meet. If what you're saying is true, why am I... Because your grandmother made a choice. Naomi interrupted gently. After your parents died, she was contacted by the family attorneys. She was told about the inheritance, about what it would mean for your future, but she was also told about the responsibilities that came with it, the public attention, the expectations, the way your life would be controlled by trustees and financial advisors. Naomi paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. Your grandmother was a wise woman, Jason. She looked at this 2-year-old boy who had just lost his parents, and she decided that you deserved to have a childhood, to grow up making your own choices about who you wanted to become. So she told the attorneys that you had died in the same accident as your parents. The words hit Jason like a physical blow. She lied. She protected you, Naomi corrected. For 28 years, the Hartwell Foundation has held your inheritance in trust, waiting for the day when you might be found or choose to come forward. We've had private investigators looking for you periodically, but your grandmother did an excellent job of covering your tracks. You grew up as Jason Thompson, ward of Eleanor Thompson, in a completely different state from where you were born. Jason sank down onto a nearby stone wall, his legs suddenly unable to support him. The photograph was still in his hands, and he found himself staring at the faces of parents he'd never really known, trying to reconcile the story he'd been told with this new reality. How much? He asked quietly. The current value of your inheritance, including growth over the past 28 years, is approximately $47 million. The number was so large, so incomprehensible, that Jason's mind simply couldn't process it. $47 million, more money than everyone in his neighborhood would earn in their combined lifetimes. More money than he could spend if he tried. There's more, Naomi continued. As Michael Thompson's heir, you're also entitled to a seat on the Foundation's board of directors. You would have significant input into how the Foundation's resources are used, which charitable causes receive funding, how the family's philanthropic legacy continues into the future. Jason looked up at her, his mind reeling. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? Naomi's expression grew more serious. Because tonight, when I watched you run into that burning house without hesitation, I saw something that convinced me. You were ready. I saw the kind of man your father would have been proud of, the kind of person who could handle this responsibility properly. She gestured toward the mansion, where firefighters were now conducting a final sweep to ensure no hot spots remained. That fire wasn't an accident, Jason. Someone set it deliberately, and I believe it was connected to my work with the Foundation. There are people who would benefit from keeping the Hartwell heir from ever being found. The implication of her words slowly sank in. You think someone tried to kill you to prevent you from finding me. I think someone has been watching me for years, waiting for the right moment to eliminate the possibility of the true heir ever claiming his inheritance. Tonight, when I called for a car to take me to meet with my attorneys about making one final attempt to locate you, they saw their opportunity. Jason stood up slowly, his mind struggling to process everything he'd learned. In the space of 30 minutes, his entire understanding of who he was, where he came from, and what his future might hold had been completely overturned. I need time to think about this, he said finally. Naomi nodded understandingly. Of course, you do. This is overwhelming, I know. But Jason, there's something else you need to understand. Now that I've found you, now that people know you exist, you're in danger too. The same people who tried to kill me tonight will come after you once they realize who you are. As if to emphasize her point, Jason's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Mrs. Chen. Strange men were asking about you and Tommy. They said they were from insurance company, but something felt wrong. Tommy is safe with me, but I think you should come home. Jason showed the message to Naomi, and he saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, recognition, and grim confirmation that the danger she described was already becoming real. The drive back to Millbrook felt like traveling between two different worlds. Jason sat in the passenger seat of Naomi's borrowed Mercedes, a loaner from a neighbor whose house hadn't burned down, trying to reconcile the man he'd been 3 hours ago with the person he apparently was now. In the back seat, Marcus and Sophia Phillips sat quietly, their expensive clothes still smudged with soot, their faces reflecting the same surreal disbelief that Jason felt. Naomi had insisted on coming with him to collect Tommy, arguing that if dangerous people were already looking for Jason, he shouldn't face them alone. She'd made several phone calls while they drove, speaking in low, urgent tones to people she referred to only as security and legal. The Foundation has resources, she'd explained after ending one call. People who specialize in protecting family members when situations become complicated. Jason had nodded, but the word complicated seemed inadequate to describe having your entire life revealed as a lie, while simultaneously discovering you were worth $47 million and someone was trying to kill you. As they turned onto the familiar streets of his working-class neighborhood, Jason felt a strange disconnection from everything he saw. The same houses he'd driven past every day for 3 years, the same corner store where he bought Tommy's school supplies, the same auto shop where he'd built what he thought was his life. All of it looked different now, like props in a play he hadn't realized he was performing in. It's that building there, Jason said, pointing to the 2-story structure that housed Martinez Auto Repair. I live upstairs. Naomi pulled into the small parking area behind the shop, and Jason could immediately see that something was wrong. Mrs. Chen's apartment, which was normally dark by this hour, had lights on in every window. More concerning, there was a black sedan parked across the street that hadn't been there when he left. Stay in the car, Jason said, but Naomi was already opening her door. We're in this together now, she said firmly. Whatever happens next, we face it as a family. The word family hit Jason like a physical blow. Family. This woman and her teenagers were his family, not by choice or affection, but by blood and inheritance and circumstances that had been hidden from him his entire life. They climbed the external staircase to his apartment, Jason's key already in his hand. Before he could unlock the door, it opened from the inside. Mrs. Chen appeared, her usually calm face creased with worry and something that looked like fear. Jason, thank goodness, she said, pulling him inside. Tommy is fine. He's sleeping. But those men, she trailed off, noticing Naomi and the teenagers behind him. Mrs. Chen, this is Naomi Phillips and her family. They're friends. Jason said, realizing he had no idea how to explain what they actually were. What happened with the men who were asking about me? Mrs. Chen glanced nervously at Naomi before answering. They came about an hour ago. 2 men in suits. Very polite, but something felt wrong. They said they were from an insurance company, investigating a claim involving you. They wanted to know about your work schedule, about Tommy's school, about your family. What did you tell them? Naomi asked, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being answered. Mrs. Chen looked at Jason for permission before responding. I told them I didn't know anything about insurance claims, and that Jason was a good neighbor who minded his own business. But they kept asking questions, and one of them was taking notes about everything, the building, the apartments, even asking about the fire escape. Jason felt his stomach tighten. Where are they now? They left about 20 minutes ago, but I saw their car parked across the street. I called you as soon as they were gone. Jason moved to the window and carefully looked outside. The black sedan was still there, and he could see the silhouettes of 2 people inside. As he watched, one of them raised what looked like binoculars or a camera to the window. They're watching us, he said, stepping back from the window. Naomi joined him, peering carefully through the blinds. Professional surveillance, she said grimly. This confirms what I suspected. Someone knew I was close to finding you, and they're not going to give up easily. I need to see Tommy, Jason said, moving toward the bedroom area of the small apartment. His son was asleep in his bed, covers pulled up to his chin, his face peaceful and innocent. Jason stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the steady rise and fall of Tommy's breathing, trying to figure out how to protect this perfect, uncomplicated life from the chaos that had suddenly engulfed them. He's beautiful, Naomi said softly, appearing beside him. He looks just like you did at that age. Jason turned to her, the reality of their situation hitting him with fresh force. This isn't fair to him. He didn't ask for any of this. None of us asked for this, Naomi replied, but here we are and we have to figure out how to move forward. They returned to the living room, where Mrs. Chen was serving tea to Marcus and Sophia with the kind of maternal efficiency that transcended language and cultural barriers. The teenagers accepted the cups gratefully, and Jason could see that, despite their expensive clothes and privileged backgrounds, they were genuinely scared. We need to leave, Naomi said, accepting a cup of tea from Mrs. Chen. Tonight, those men outside aren't going to wait forever, and once they realize I survived the fire, they'll know I found you. Leave and go where? Jason asked. This is our home. Tommy's school is here, his friends, everything he knows. Jason, Naomi said gently, I understand this is overwhelming, but you have to accept that your old life is over. The moment I told you who you really are, everything changed. You can't go back to being just a mechanic who lives above an auto shop. Too many people have too much to lose if you claim your inheritance. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy blanket. She was right, of course. Even if he wanted to pretend tonight had never happened, even if he tried to ignore the revelation about his heritage, the people who had tried to kill Naomi wouldn't just disappear. They would keep coming until they eliminated the threat he represented to their plans. What about Miguel? Jason asked. The shop, my job, Mrs. Chen. I can't just abandon everyone. We'll figure out how to protect them, Naomi assured him. The foundation has resources, lawyers, security people. We can make sure no one gets hurt because of their connection to you. Jason looked around his small apartment. The mismatched furniture, the carefully managed space, the evidence of a life built on making do with less. In a few hours, he would have the resources to buy anything he wanted, to live anywhere he chose, to provide Tommy with opportunities he'd never dreamed possible. So why did the prospect feel like losing everything that mattered? I need to think about this, he said finally. "There's no time to think," Naomi replied, her voice urgent. "Those men outside represent people who have been planning this for years. They won't hesitate to hurt Tommy if they think it will get to you." As if summoned by her words, Jason's phone buzzed with another text message. This one was from an unknown number. "We know who you are now, Jason Thompson. We know about the boy. Come outside alone, or others will get hurt." Jason showed the message to Naomi, and he saw her face go pale. "They're not just watching anymore," she said. "They're ready to act." Outside, the black sedan's doors opened and two men in dark suits stepped out. Even from the second floor, Jason could see that they were both large, professionally dressed, and moving with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested they were done waiting. "Mrs. Chen," Jason said urgently, "I need you to take Tommy and go to your sister's house. Right now. Don't pack anything, just take him and leave through the back." Mrs. Chen didn't ask questions. She moved quickly to Tommy's bed, gently waking the confused 8-year-old and helping him into his shoes and jacket. "Dad?" Tommy asked sleepily. "What's happening?" Jason knelt down to his son's level, trying to keep his voice calm. "Mrs. Chen is going to take you on an adventure tonight, okay? I'll come get you tomorrow, I promise." "Are we in trouble? Are we in trouble?" Jason looked into his son's trusting eyes and realized that he couldn't lie anymore. Too many lies had already shaped his life, cost him the truth about who he was and where he came from. "We're going to be okay," he said instead. "But right now, I need you to be brave and go with Mrs. Chen. Can you do that for me?" Tommy nodded solemnly, accepting his father's words with the kind of trust that made Jason's heart ache. As Mrs. Chen led him toward the back exit, Jason realized that everything he'd thought he knew about protecting his son was about to be tested in ways he'd never imagined. The safe house was nothing like Jason had expected. Instead of some sterile government facility or anonymous hotel room, Naomi had brought them to a sprawling ranch-style home in the suburbs, complete with a swimming pool, manicured gardens, and the kind of security system that was invisible until you knew what to look for. The property belonged to the Hartwell Foundation, Naomi explained, maintained for situations exactly like this one. It had been 3 days since they'd escaped from Jason's apartment through Mrs. Chen's back door, leaving behind everything he'd thought was his life. 3 days of learning that having $47 million didn't automatically make anything easier. It just made the problems more complex and the people trying to solve them more expensive. Jason stood at the kitchen window, watching Tommy splash in the pool with Marcus and Sophia. His son had adapted to their new circumstances with the resilience that 8-year-olds possessed in abundance, treating the entire situation like an extended sleepover with new friends. The fact that those friends happened to be his half-cousins was something Jason was still trying to wrap his mind around. "The DNA results came back," Naomi said, entering the kitchen with a manila folder in her hands. "Not that we needed confirmation, but the lawyers insisted." Jason accepted the folder, but didn't open it immediately. The scientific proof of what he'd already accepted as truth somehow felt both necessary and irrelevant. He was Michael Thompson's son, heir to the Hartwell fortune, whether a lab test confirmed it or not. 99.7% probability, he said after scanning the documents. "I guess that settles it." "There's more," Naomi continued, settling into one of the kitchen chairs. Over the past 3 days, Jason had watched her gradually shed the polished exterior she'd maintained during their first meeting. Without the designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked younger, more approachable, and surprisingly vulnerable. She opened a second folder, this one thick with photographs, documents, and what appeared to be legal correspondence. "This is everything we've been able to piece together about the people who tried to kill us. It's worse than I initially thought." Jason joined her at the table, accepting a cup of coffee she'd poured. The domestic normalcy of the gesture felt strange given the circumstances, but also oddly comforting. Despite everything that had changed, some human rituals remained constant. The fire was definitely arson, Naomi began, spreading photographs across the table. But it wasn't just about preventing me from finding you. There's a group of people, lawyers, accountants, board members, who have been siphoning money from the foundation for years. They were counting on the Hartwell heir never being found so they could eventually petition the courts to dissolve the trust and distribute the assets. Jason studied the photographs, seeing faces he didn't recognize but instinctively distrusted. These were people in expensive suits sitting around conference tables, people who looked like they'd never missed a meal or wondered how to pay rent, people who had apparently been stealing from charitable causes for personal gain. "How much?" he asked. "We estimate about $15 million over the past 8 years, money that was supposed to go to medical research, educational programs, disaster relief, stolen and redirected into personal accounts, shell companies, fake consulting contracts." The number hit Jason like a physical blow. $15 million, more money than his entire neighborhood would see in their lifetimes, taken from people who needed it most by people who already had more than enough. Can we get it back? Some of it, probably. But that's not the real issue. The issue is that these people have been operating under the assumption that they'd never have to answer to the actual heir. Now that you've been found, they're facing criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and the complete destruction of their careers. Jason leaned back in his chair, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. So they're not just trying to kill me for the inheritance. They're trying to kill me to cover up their crimes. Exactly. And they have resources, money, connections, professional contacts who can make problems disappear. The kind of people who can arrange house fires and make them look accidental. Through the window, Jason could see Tommy attempting to teach Marcus how to do a cannonball, both boys laughing as they created enormous splashes that soaked Sophia, who was trying to read poolside. The scene was so normal, so innocent, that it felt like watching a movie of someone else's life. "I keep thinking about my grandmother," Jason said quietly. "She gave up everything to protect me from this world, moved across the country, changed our names, lived on a fixed income for the rest of her life just so I could grow up normal." Naomi reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. The gesture was maternal, comforting, and completely at odds with the deadly serious conversation they were having. "She did protect you," Naomi said. "She gave you 28 years to become the man you are today. Someone with integrity, compassion, the ability to risk everything for strangers. That's not something money can buy or teach." Jason looked down at their joined hands, noting the contrast between his calloused mechanic's fingers and her perfectly manicured nails. But it wasn't enough, was it? All her sacrifice, all those years of hiding, and we still ended up here. "Maybe," Naomi said, thoughtfully, "this is exactly where you were supposed to end up. Maybe everything that happened, your grandmother's protection, your years as a mechanic, even the divorce that left you struggling, maybe it all prepared you for this moment." Before Jason could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Miguel's number from the auto shop. Jason had been dreading this call for 3 days, knowing he owed his boss an explanation, but not knowing how to provide one without revealing too much. "I have to take this," he said, stepping outside onto the patio. "Miguel, I'm so sorry." "Jason, where the hell are you?" Miguel's voice was sharp with worry and frustration. "You disappeared 3 nights ago. Mrs. Chen won't tell me anything, except that you're safe, and there were men here yesterday asking questions about you." Jason felt his stomach drop. "What kind of questions? About your work schedule, your finances, whether you had any enemies? They said they were private investigators working for an insurance company, but something didn't feel right. I told them, Nothing, but Jason, what's going on? I can't explain everything right now, Jason said, choosing his words carefully, but I'm safe. Tommy's safe, and we're going to be okay. I just need some time to sort things out. Sort what out? You're one of the best workers I've ever had. You've never missed a day without calling, and now you've been gone for 3 days with no explanation. The hurt in Miguel's voice was almost worse than the worry. This man had given Jason a chance, when no one else would, had become more than just a boss, had treated him like the son he'd never had. And now Jason was repaying that kindness by disappearing without explanation. Miguel, I promise I'll explain everything soon. But right now, I need you to be extra careful. If anyone else comes asking about me, don't tell them anything and call. The police immediately. Police! Jason, what the hell is going on? I have to go. I'll call you soon. Jason ended the call before Miguel could respond, knowing he was handling the situation badly, but not seeing any alternative. How could he explain that he'd discovered he was worth $47 million, that people were trying to kill him, that his son's safety depended on staying hidden from criminals who had been stealing from charity? When he returned to the kitchen, Naomi was studying him with the kind of professional assessment he was beginning to recognize. She saw everything, processed it all, and filed it away for future reference. That was hard, she said. It wasn't a question. Miguel gave me a job when no one else would. He's been like a father to me, and I just lied to him. You protected him, Naomi corrected. The less he knows right now, the safer he is. Jason knew she was right, but that didn't make it easier. Over the past 3 days, he'd been forced to make decision after decision that went against his instincts, his values, his understanding of what was right. Each choice felt like betraying some part of who he'd always been. This is going to keep happening, isn't it? He asked, having to choose between protecting people and being honest with them. For a while, yes. But Jason, there's something else we need to discuss. The Foundation's board of directors is meeting next week. They know you've been found, and they want to meet you formally. All of them, including the people who've been stealing, especially them. They'll be putting on their best behavior, trying to convince you that they're trustworthy, that whatever irregularities might have occurred were simple mistakes or misunderstandings. Jason felt a familiar knot forming in his stomach. You want me to sit in a room with people who tried to kill me and pretend everything is fine? I want you to look them in the eye and let them know that the Hartwell heir isn't going to be easy. To eliminate that you're smart, prepared, and not going anywhere. Outside, Tommy's laughter echoed across the pool area as he successfully executed his first cannonball. The sound was pure joy, untainted by knowledge of inheritance battles or assassination attempts, or the complex moral calculations that came with unexpected wealth. Jason made a decision that surprised even him. Set up the meeting, he said, but I want security, lawyers, and a full investigation into every penny that's gone missing. If these people want to meet the heir, they're going to meet all of him. The boardroom of the Hartwell Foundation occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. Jason had never been this high above ground in his life, and despite everything he'd learned about his heritage, he still felt like an imposter walking through the marble-floored lobby in his best suit, a navy blue ensemble that Naomi had insisted on purchasing for him the day before. Remember, Naomi whispered as they approached the conference room doors, you belong here more than any of them. This is your legacy, your responsibility, your decision to make. Jason nodded, adjusting the tie that felt like it was strangling him. Behind them walked 2 security specialists, former FBI agents who now worked exclusively for the Foundation's legal team. Their presence was both reassuring and unsettling, a reminder that the people they were about to meet had already demonstrated their willingness to commit murder. The boardroom itself was exactly what Jason had expected from a $2 billion charitable organization. A massive oval table made of polished walnut, leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars, and oil paintings of distinguished-looking men who had presumably been important Hartwells throughout the decades. 7 people were already seated around the table when Jason entered, and he could feel their eyes tracking his every movement with the kind of intensity that made his skin crawl. These were the board members who had voted on charitable distributions, overseen foundation policies, and, according to the investigation Naomi had commissioned, systematically stolen from the very causes they were supposed to protect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Naomi announced with professional formality, "I'd like you to meet Jason Thompson, the rightful heir to the Hartwell Foundation and Michael Thompson's son." The silence that followed was thick with tension, calculation, and barely concealed hostility. Jason recognized the faces from the photographs Naomi had shown him. Charles Whitman, the foundation's chief financial officer who had created the shell companies used to launder stolen funds. Rebecca Morrison, the head of charitable giving who had approved fraudulent grants to organizations that existed only on paper. David Kellerman, the longtime board chairman who had orchestrated the cover-up when questions first arose about missing money. "Mr. Thompson," Chairman Kellerman said finally, rising from his seat with the kind of practiced smile that politicians and used car salesmen perfected. "What a pleasure to finally meet you. We've been hoping for this day for many years." Jason remained standing, a choice Naomi had coached him on. "Really? Because from what I understand, several people in this room have been hoping I'd never be found at all." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Rebecca Morrison shifted uncomfortably in her chair, while Charles Whitman's smile became noticeably more strained. "I'm not sure what you mean," Kellerman replied carefully. "The board has always been committed to locating the missing heir and fulfilling our fiduciary responsibilities." "Is that what you call it?" Jason asked, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority he'd developed from years of dealing with customers who tried to avoid paying for car repairs. "Because I have documentation showing that $15 million in charitable funds have been redirected into personal accounts over the past 8 years. The silence that followed was different. From the first one, less calculated, more desperate, Jason could see several board members exchanging glances, trying to gauge how much he actually knew and how much he was guessing. Naomi placed a thick folder on the table and slid it toward the center. Bank records, forged documents, email correspondence, and financial transfers. Everything is documented, cross-referenced, and ready for presentation to both civil and criminal courts. "Now wait just a minute," Charles Whitman said, his composure finally cracking. "There are perfectly legitimate explanations for any financial irregularities you might have found. Administrative fees, consulting costs, operational expenses." "Operational expenses?" Jason interrupted, pulling out a specific document from the folder. "Like the $200,000 paid to Kellerman Consulting for strategic planning services. That consisted of 3 emails and a 2-page memo recommending that the foundation continue current practices." David Kellerman's face had gone pale, but he maintained his diplomatic smile. "Mr. Thompson, I think you're misunderstanding the complexity of foundation management. There are many moving parts, regulatory requirements, oversight responsibilities." "I understand perfectly," Jason said, surprised by how calm his own voice sounded. "You've been stealing from medical research programs, educational grants, and disaster relief funds because you thought no one would ever hold you accountable." "That's a very serious accusation," Rebecca Morrison said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "I hope you have better evidence than some questionable financial records and circumstantial—" "We have video surveillance of you meeting with representatives from fake charities," Naomi interrupted, producing a tablet and setting it on the table. We have recorded phone conversations discussing how to hide financial transfers. We have testimony from 3 different witnesses who were approached about participating in fraudulent grant schemes. Jason watched the faces around the table transform from confident hostility to genuine fear. These were people who had spent years believing they were untouchable, protected by their positions, their connections, and the assumption that their crimes would never be discovered. "What do you want?" Kellerman asked finally, abandoning all pretense of innocence. "I want the money returned," Jason said. "Every penny. I want full financial disclosure of all foundation activities for the past decade. And I want your resignations. Effective immediately. You can't just walk in here and..." Charles Whitman began, but Jason cut him off. "Actually, I can. As the primary heir and beneficiary of the Hartwell Trust, I have the legal authority to restructure the board, demand full financial accountability, and pursue criminal charges against anyone who has violated their fiduciary responsibilities." The authority in his own voice surprised Jason almost as much as it seemed to surprise the board members. 3 days ago, he'd been a mechanic worried about paying rent. Now he was sitting in a boardroom 42 floors above the city, demanding accountability from people who had stolen millions of dollars from charity. "Mr. Thompson," Rebecca Morrison said, her tone shifting to something that might have been desperation. "Perhaps we can reach some kind of arrangement. A settlement that addresses your concerns while allowing the foundation to continue its important work without disruption." "The foundation will continue its important work," Jason replied, "with a new board, full transparency, and every stolen dollar returned to its intended recipients." Chairman Kellerman leaned back in his chair, studying Jason with the kind of calculating look that suggested he was reassessing everything he thought he knew about the situation. "You're not what we expected," he said finally. "What did you expect?" "Someone we could control. Someone grateful for the inheritance, willing to go along with established practices, content to collect dividends, and let others handle the details." Jason thought about his grandmother, who had sacrificed everything to protect him from exactly this kind of corruption. He thought about Tommy, playing in the pool with his newfound cousins, deserving a future built on integrity rather than stolen charity funds. He thought about Miguel, Mrs. Chen, and all the people in his neighborhood who understood the value of honest work and helping others. "You expected someone who didn't grow up understanding what it means to earn every dollar," Jason said. "Someone who didn't spend years learning that integrity matters more than convenience." He stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. "You have 48 hours to submit your resignations and provide complete financial records. After that, we turn everything over to the district attorney's office and let criminal prosecutors sort out the details." As Jason moved toward the door, Kellerman called after him, "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Thompson. The foundation operates in a complex world with powerful people who don't appreciate disruption." Jason paused at the doorway, looking back at the faces around the table, faces that now showed fear rather than confidence. "Actually," he said, "I know exactly what I'm dealing with. People who forgot that charity is supposed to help others, not enrich themselves. People who thought they could steal from disaster victims and medical research because no one was watching. No one was watching." He gestured toward the windows overlooking the city. "But someone is watching now, and I'm not going anywhere." As they left the boardroom, Naomi fell into step beside him. "That," she said quietly, "was extraordinary. You sounded like you were born to this." Jason loosened his tie, finally able to breathe properly again. "I sounded like my grandmother," he said. "She always said that people show you who they really are when they think no one important is watching." 6 weeks after the boardroom confrontation, Jason stood in the renovated headquarters of the Hartwell Foundation, watching as contractors put the finishing touches on what would become the new Community Outreach Center. The entire building had been transformed. Gone were the intimidating marble floors and pretentious oil paintings, replaced with comfortable seating areas, interactive displays showing the foundation's charitable work, and photographs of the real people whose lives had been changed by properly distributed funds. The corrupt board members had resigned within the 48-hour deadline, though not without attempting to negotiate immunity deals that Jason had refused to consider. Charles Whitman was facing federal embezzlement charges. Rebecca Morrison had been arrested for wire fraud, and David Kellerman was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Most importantly, 12.3 million of the stolen funds had been recovered and redistributed to the charitable organizations that should have received them originally. The medical research grant recipients want to name a wing after you, Naomi said, approaching him with a tablet full of emails and thank you letters. Over the past weeks, she had transitioned from family friend to trusted advisor to something that Jason was still trying to define. Their relationship had deepened through the crisis, built on shared values and mutual respect, but also something more personal that neither of them had explicitly acknowledged. "I don't want my name on buildings," Jason replied, accepting the tablet and scrolling through messages from hospitals, schools, and disaster relief organizations. "I want the money to go where it's supposed to go," Naomi smiled, and Jason realized that her smiles had become important to him in ways that had nothing to do with business or family obligations. "You know, when I first started looking for you, I imagined finding someone who would be grateful for the inheritance and willing to let others handle the details. I never imagined finding someone who would completely revolutionize how the foundation operates." Jason looked around the bustling office space, where the new board members, carefully vetted individuals with backgrounds in non-profit management, social work, and community organizing, were reviewing grant applications with the kind of enthusiasm that came from actually caring about helping people. "My grandmother used to say that money was like water," he said. "It could nourish everything it touched, or it could flood and destroy, depending on how you channeled it." She sounds like a wise woman. She was. She also would have liked you. The words hung in the air between them, carrying implications that Jason hadn't intended to voice but couldn't take back. Over the past weeks, he'd found himself looking forward to their daily planning meetings, appreciating not just Naomi's intelligence and competence, but her laugh, her way of making even the most complex problems seem manageable, the way she interacted with Tommy and her own teenagers like they were already a family. Before Naomi could respond, Tommy burst through the office doors with the kind of energy that only 8-year-olds possessed. He was followed by Marcus and Sophia, all three of them carrying what appeared to be architectural drawings and arguing enthusiastically about playground designs. "Dad, look what we made," Tommy announced, spreading his drawing across Jason's desk. "It's a playground for the Foundation's community center, but not just any playground, one that works for kids who use wheelchairs too." Jason studied the carefully drawn plans, noting the ramps, accessible swings, and sensory play areas that the three children had designed together. The drawing was more sophisticated than he would have expected from kids their ages, but then again, these weren't ordinary circumstances. "This is incredible," he said, meaning it. "How did you come up with all these ideas?" "Marcus's friend at school uses a wheelchair," Sophia explained, pointing to specific features in the design. "And we researched online about universal design, principles. Did you know that most playgrounds exclude kids with disabilities without even meaning to?" Jason looked at his son, this boy who had grown up in a cramped apartment above an auto shop, who had learned not to ask for expensive things, who now was thinking about how to make play accessible for children he'd never met. The transformation wasn't just in Jason's circumstances, it was in Tommy's understanding of what it meant to have resources and responsibility. "Can we build it?" Tommy asked, his eyes bright with possibility. Jason glanced at Naomi, who was studying the drawings with the same serious attention she gave to million-dollar grant proposals. "What do you think? Is this feasible?" "More than feasible," she replied. "It's exactly the kind of project the foundation should be funding. Community-centered, inclusive, designed by the people who will actually use it." "Then let's build it," Jason said, and watched his son's face light up with pure joy. Later that evening, after the children had gone to bed in the safe house that had become their temporary home, Jason and Naomi sat on the back patio, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I need to tell you something," Naomi said quietly, setting down her wine glass and turning to face him. "When I first found you, when I saw you run into that burning house, I thought I understood what kind of person you were. But I was wrong." Jason felt his heart rate increase, uncertain where this conversation was heading. "Wrong how?" "I thought you were brave, which you are. I thought you were good, which you are. But what I didn't realize was how completely you would transform everything you touched." She gestured toward the house where their children were sleeping. "Marcus and Sophia have changed since we've been living like a family. They're more thoughtful, more aware of other people's struggles, more interested in using their advantages to help others. They're good kids. They just needed someone to show them what was possible. And Tommy," Naomi continued, "he's gone from a boy who was afraid to ask for things to a boy who's designing playgrounds for children he's never met. You did that. Your values, your way of seeing the world, it's contagious." Jason reached for her hand, the gesture feeling both natural and momentous. "It's not just me, it's all of us together. You've changed too, you know. When I first met you, you seemed like you were carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Now you laugh at Tommy's jokes and let Sophia teach you how to make friendship. Bracelets." Naomi's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I haven't felt like part of a real family since my husband died. I've been so focused on managing his legacy, protecting the foundation, raising my kids alone. I forgot what it felt like to just be happy." The space between them seemed to shrink, charged with possibility and months of unspoken feelings. Jason could smell her perfume, could see the way the evening light caught the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could feel the warmth of her hand in his. "Naomi," he said softly, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a millionaire or run a foundation or be part of your world. But I know that I want to try, if you want me to." Instead of answering with words, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative at first, then deeper as they both realized that this moment had been building since the night of the fire. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love your integrity, your compassion, the way you make me want to be better than I am." "I love you too," Jason replied, the words feeling both new and inevitable. "I love your strength, your dedication to helping others, the way you make me believe I can actually do this." They sat together in the gathering darkness, holding each other and talking quietly about the future they were building together, not just as partners in managing the foundation, but as a family. They talked about Tommy's education, about Marcus and Sophia's college plans, about the house they would buy together, about the values they wanted to pass on to their children. "There's something else," Naomi said, as they prepared to go inside. "The foundation's board wants to make you the official chairman. It would make you the youngest chairman in the organization's history, but also the most qualified in terms of understanding what the foundation's mission really means." Jason considered this, thinking about the responsibility, the public attention, the weight of making decisions that would affect thousands of people's lives. "Will you help me?" he asked. "Every step of the way," she promised. As they walked hand in hand toward the house where their children were sleeping, Jason realized that the transformation was complete. He was no longer Jason Thompson, the struggling single father who fixed cars and drove strangers around to make ends meet. He was Jason Thompson Hartwell, foundation chairman, family man, and guardian of a legacy that could change lives on a scale he'd never imagined. But most importantly, he was still the man who would run into a burning building to save strangers, who would choose integrity over convenience, who understood that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the positive impact you had on other people's lives. The wedding was everything Jason had never known he wanted, small, intimate, and filled with the people who had become his chosen family. They held the ceremony in the community garden that the Hartwell Foundation had funded behind the new headquarters, with Tommy serving as both ring bearer and best man, while Marcus and Sophia took turns as maid and matron of honor, a role-switching arrangement that had made all three children dissolve into giggles during the rehearsal. Miguel was there, finally understanding why Jason had disappeared so suddenly 6 months earlier. The older man had cried when Jason explained everything, not from sadness, but from pride at seeing the boy he'd mentored become a man who could handle such enormous responsibility with grace and integrity. "I always knew you were special," Miguel had said during the reception, raising a glass of champagne in a toast. "I just never imagined you were special enough to save the world." Mrs. Chen sat at the head table, having been designated as honorary grandmother to all 4 children. She'd moved into the guest house on the property Jason and Naomi had purchased together, a sprawling but comfortable home that felt like a family residence rather than a mansion, complete with the universal design playground that had become the children's collaborative masterpiece. "I never thought I'd see the day," Mrs. Chen whispered to Jason during the father-daughter dance he shared with Sophia, "when you'd be dancing at your own wedding in a suit that costs more than my car." Jason laughed, spinning Sophia carefully before responding. "The suit might be expensive, but I'm still the same person who lived above your auto shop and ate your dumplings for dinner." "No," Mrs. Chen corrected gently. "You're better. You're who you were always meant to be." Later that evening, as the reception wound down and the children played tag among the garden's illuminated pathways, Jason found himself standing with Naomi on the small bridge that crossed the ornamental pond. The lights from the community center reflected in the water, creating patterns that shifted with every gentle breeze. "Any regrets?" Naomi asked, adjusting the simple gold band on her finger, a ring that matched Jason's, both of them inscribed with the date they'd first met, and the words, "From Fire, Hope." Jason considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, he'd been worried about paying rent and buying groceries. Now he was married to a woman he loved completely, stepfather to 2 teenagers who had embraced him as family, and chairman of a foundation that distributed millions of dollars annually to causes that actually mattered. "I regret that my grandmother isn't here to see this," he said finally. "She would have loved you, loved the kids, loved knowing that her sacrifice actually led to something beautiful." "She is here," Naomi said softly, pointing to where Tommy was teaching Marcus how to skip. "Stones in the pond. Every value she taught you, every lesson about integrity and hard work and helping others, it's all here, in this moment, in the family we've built." Jason nodded, understanding what she meant. His grandmother's influence was visible in every decision he made as foundation chairman, every way he interacted with the children, every choice to prioritize people over profits. "What about you?" he asked. "Any regrets about marrying a former mechanic who still doesn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners?" Naomi laughed, the sound bright and joyful in the evening air. "I regret that it took a house fire and a conspiracy to murder us both for me to find you. But everything else, everything that led us to this moment, I wouldn't change a single day." They were interrupted by Tommy running up to them, his dress shirt untucked and his hair mussed from play. "Dad, Naomi, Marcus says we have to go inside soon. But can we make s'mores first? Mrs. Chen said she'd help us build a fire in the fire pit. Jason and Naomi exchanged glances, both of them thinking about the fire that had brought them together, about how something so destructive had led to something so beautiful. Of course we can make s'mores, Jason said, scooping Tommy up in a hug. It's your new mom's first official family s'mores experience. New mom, Naomi repeated softly, tears gathering in her eyes. I like the sound of that. As they walked back toward the house, surrounded by the laughter of children and the warm glow of lights strung through the garden, Jason reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The scared, single father who had driven to Grandview Heights 6 months ago would never have imagined this life was possible. The Hartwell Foundation was thriving under new leadership, with transparency policies and community oversight that ensured charitable funds reached their intended recipients. The inclusive playground had become a model for other communities, with requests for similar designs coming from cities across the country. 3 new medical research grants had been funded in full. A dozen disaster relief organizations had received emergency funding, and an innovative educational program was providing scholarships to students from working-class families. But beyond the professional success, Jason had found something he hadn't even known he was missing: a sense of completeness that came from building a life based on shared values and genuine love. Tommy had siblings now, and Jason had a partner who understood both his ambition to help others and his need to stay grounded in the principles his grandmother had taught him. You know what the best part is, Naomi said, as if reading his thoughts, while they watched the children roast marshmallows around the fire pit. What's that? This is just the beginning. Tommy's 8, Marcus is 14, Sophia is 16. We get to watch them grow up together, see what kind of people they become, help them figure out how to use their advantages to make the world better. Jason pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her perfume mixed with wood smoke and autumn air, and maybe add a few more kids to the mix. Naomi looked up at him with surprise and delight. Are you proposing we have children together, Mr. Thompson Hartwell? I'm proposing we keep building this family in whatever way feels right, Jason replied. Whether that's more kids of our own, adoption, or just being the kind of people other children can come to when they need help, like your grandmother did for you. Exactly like that. Later that night, after the children had finally been convinced to go to bed and the catering staff had cleaned up the last of the reception dishes, Jason and Naomi sat in their living room, a comfortable space filled with family photos, children's artwork, and books that actually got read rather than displayed for show. I have something for you, Naomi said, reaching into the antique desk that had belonged to her first husband's family. She pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages blank and waiting. What's this for? For writing down the stories you want to remember. Tommy's first day at his new school, Marcus getting his driver's license, Sophia's graduation, the first time someone tells you that a foundation grant changed their life. She paused, her voice growing softer. The story of how a mechanic became a philanthropist and found his family in the process. Jason accepted the journal, running his fingers over the smooth leather cover. Will you help me write it? Every page, she promised. As they climbed the stairs to their bedroom, passing by the children's rooms, where soft breathing and the occasional murmur indicated peaceful sleep, Jason felt a profound sense of gratitude for the unexpected path his life had taken. He thought about the house fire that had started everything, about the moment he'd decided to run toward danger instead of away from it. That split-second choice had led to a cascade of changes that had affected not just his life, but the lives of countless people who would benefit from the Foundation's work. The children who would play on inclusive playgrounds, the families who would receive disaster relief, the researchers who would find cures for diseases. Sometimes the most important moments in life arrive disguised as ordinary Tuesday evenings when you happen to be in the right place at the right time with the courage to act on your values rather than your fears. as he turned off the lights and settled into bed beside his wife. Jason Thompson Hartwell, former mechanic, current foundation chairman, husband, father, and guardian of a legacy built on helping others, closed his eyes and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference, new chapters in the story he was writing with the family he'd found in the flames. 5 years later, Jason stood at the podium of the National Philanthropy Conference, looking out at an audience of foundation leaders, non-profit directors, and social entrepreneurs from around the world. The conference theme was Transforming Communities Through Authentic Leadership, and Jason had been invited as the keynote speaker, an invitation that still surprised him, even after years of leading the Hartwell Foundation to unprecedented levels of impact and transparency. 5 years ago, he began, his voice carrying easily through the packed auditorium, I was a single father working as a mechanic, driving for a rideshare company on weekends to make ends meet. I lived in a 400-square-foot apartment above an auto shop, and my biggest worry was whether I could afford to take my son to the arcade. The audience listened intently, many of them knowing the broad strokes of his story, but few understanding the personal details of his transformation. Then one night I got a call to pick up a passenger in the wealthy part of town. When I arrived, the house was on fire and there were people trapped inside. I had a choice, wait for the fire department or act on what I'd been taught my entire life, that when people need help, you help them, regardless of the consequences to yourself. Jason paused, his eyes finding Naomi in the front row. She was sitting with their 6-month-old daughter, Elena Rose, named after Jason's grandmother, Eleanor, and Naomi's middle name. Beside them sat Tommy, now 13 and volunteering as a junior, counselor at the Foundation's summer camp for underprivileged youth. Marcus was 17, preparing for college with plans to study social work, while Sophia, now 21, was completing her senior year at Stanford with a double major in nonprofit management and public policy. What I discovered that night, Jason continued, was that heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and acting anyway because your values matter more than your comfort. And sometimes, when you make choices based on those values, life gives you opportunities you never imagined possible. He clicked to the next slide, showing statistics from the Hartwell Foundation's work over the past 5 years. $127 million distributed to vetted charitable organizations, 847 medical research grants funded, 156 disaster relief operations supported, and 23 community centers built using the universal design principles that had started with a playground designed by 3 children. The numbers are important, Jason said, but they're not the real story. The real story is Marcus Chen, a teenager from Oakland who received a scholarship to study engineering and is now designing affordable prosthetics for amputee athletes. The real story is the Rodriguez family in Houston, whose home was rebuilt after Hurricane Helena with funding from our disaster relief program. The real story is Dr. Sarah Kim, whose research into pediatric leukemia treatments received foundation support and has led to a 40% improvement in survival rates. The audience was silent, absorbed in the human stories behind the statistics. 5 years ago, I inherited not just money, but responsibility. I inherited the legacy of people who believed that wealth should serve a purpose beyond accumulating more wealth. But more importantly, I inherited the wisdom of a grandmother who taught me that true success is measured by how many people you help, not how much you accumulate for yourself. Jason's voice grew stronger, more passionate, as he reached the heart of his message. Every day, I meet foundation leaders who talk about scaling impact and optimizing philanthropic portfolios, as if charity were just another form of investment banking. But what I've learned is that authentic philanthropy isn't about managing assets, It's about understanding that every dollar you distribute represents someone's hope, someone's chance at a better life, someone's opportunity to survive and thrive. He clicked to a photo of the original playground design that Tommy, Marcus, and Sophia had created together, now installed in 37 communities across 12 states. This playground was designed by 3 children who understood something that many adults forget. Inclusion isn't expensive, exclusion is. When you build something that works for everyone, you create community. When you build something that only works for some people, you create division. The applause was sustained and genuine, but Jason raised his hand for quiet. "I want to end with a challenge," he said. "Not just for foundation leaders, but for anyone who has resources, whether that's money, time, skills, or connections. The challenge is this: remember that your comfort is not more important than someone else's survival. Your convenience is not more important than someone else's opportunity. Your fear is not more important than someone else's hope." As Jason stepped down from the podium to thunderous applause, he was approached by dozens of conference attendees with questions, partnership proposals, and requests for advice. But his attention was focused on his family, making their way through the crowd to reach him. Tommy got to him first, wrapping his father in the kind of hug that 13-year-old boys usually reserved for sports victories and Christmas mornings. "Dad, that was amazing," Tommy said. "I recorded the whole thing to show Elena when she's older." Jason looked down at his youngest daughter, sleeping peacefully in Naomi's arms, despite the noise and excitement of the conference. Elena had been an unexpected surprise, conceived during their honeymoon and born healthy and beautiful into a family that had room for infinite love. She'll probably be tired of hearing stories about the old days by the time she's old enough to understand them, Jason said, gently stroking the baby's dark hair. "Are you kidding?" Marcus interjected, joining their family huddle. "By the time Elena's our age, you'll probably be running for president or something." "God forbid," Naomi laughed. "I married a philanthropist, not a politician." "What's the difference?" Sophia asked, appearing with her typical ability to ask questions that cut to the heart of complex issues. Jason considered this seriously. Politicians make promises about changing the world. Philanthropists actually do it, one person at a time. Later that evening, back in their hotel suite, the children were asleep and Jason and Naomi sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights, sharing a bottle of wine and reflecting on how far they'd traveled from that night of fire and revelation. Tattoo. You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't gotten that ride-share call? Naomi asked, Elena sleeping against her shoulder after a late-night feeding. Jason shook his head. "I don't believe in alternate timelines. I believe that everything that happened was leading us to exactly where we're supposed to be. Even the corruption, the attempts on our lives, the months of fear and uncertainty. Especially those things. Without the corruption, I never would have understood how important transparent leadership is. Without the threats, I never would have appreciated how precious family is. Without the uncertainty, I never would have learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than fear." Naomi shifted Elena to her other shoulder, the baby making soft, sleeping sounds that filled the comfortable silence between them. "I have something to tell you," she said quietly. "The board voted today. They want to establish the Jason Thompson Community Hero Fund, a permanent endowment to support ordinary people who do extraordinary things for others." Jason felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Naomi, that's not necessary. It's not about necessity. It's about legacy. Someday, Tommy and Marcus and Sophia and Elena are going to inherit the responsibility we're building now. But more than that, they're going to inherit the example we're setting. I want them to know that heroism doesn't require special circumstances or inherited wealth. It just requires someone willing to run toward the fire when other people need help. As they prepared for bed, Jason found himself thinking about the journal Naomi had given him on their wedding night. It was nearly full now, pages covered with stories of grants funded, communities supported, lives changed, and moments of joy with their growing family. Tomorrow, they would fly home to a house full of children's laughter, foundation business, school events, and the 1,000 small decisions that made up a life of purpose. There would be new challenges, new opportunities to help others, new chapters in the story they were writing together. But tonight, surrounded by his sleeping family in a hotel room 40 floors above a city full of strangers, Jason Thompson Hartwell closed his eyes and smiled with the deep contentment that came from knowing he had found his place in the world. He was still the man who would run into burning buildings to save strangers. He was still the father who put his children's needs above his own comfort. He was still the person his grandmother had raised him to be, honest, hard-working, and committed to helping others whenever possible. The only difference was that now, he had the resources to help on a scale his grandmother never could have imagined, and a family who shared his commitment to using those resources wisely. Sometimes the most extraordinary lives begin with the most ordinary choice to do what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's dangerous, even when no one is watching. And sometimes, when you make that choice consistently enough, for long enough, life gives you everything you never knew you needed. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.